Welcome back to the Extra Rep Podcast, guys. I'm Josh.
I'm Liam.
So today we're going to talk about fiber. So I think fiber, again, something that a lot of people don't quite understand, what it is, how it works. And then we're also going to go through a couple of things in terms of being able to get more fiber into your diet and why it's important, and how to know when there's also too much fiber potentially in the diet. There's a bit of a swinging pendulum there. We're also going to go on a bit of a caveat about the carnivore diet. For those who don't know, the carnivore diet generally is absolutely no fiber. So it is something we want to discuss, and to why it may be good or bad depending on your certain situation as well. So obviously, to start with, Liam, if you can explain, roughly what fiber it is and what it does, we'll be able to sort of go from there.
Fiber's an interesting one, right? Because essentially it's a carbohydrate. Mm-hmm. It's like a plant-based form of carbohydrate, but it really serves in a lot of things, like not only our lipid profile like cholesterol, but mainly our gut functioning.
Yeah, for sure. And do you find, like, when we're talking about fiber as well, like a lot of people, they don't really measure fiber at all. Like they know, if someone says, eat more fruits, eat more vegetables, eat more of this, a lot of the time in terms of health, they're probably talking about getting more fiber into your diet. But a lot of people don't know this. They think just eat fruits and vegetables and stuff for the sake of it. And of course, there are definitely other benefits associated with that as well.
Micronutrients.
Yeah, micronutrients, of course. Yep. But I think where people get confused is they just think, okay, well, it's not essential, I don't need it, and then they continue to not have it. And then down the road, that's where they start to run into, I guess, a lot of issues. So what issues do you see when you're thinking of someone who just doesn't have enough fiber in their diet?
Well, there's actually two reasons to actually what's going on there. So one, they actually could be completely intolerant to fiber, which a lot of people with gut issues like small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, IBS, all that stuff, they can't consume certain types of fiber. And I say certain types because there are some that they can, but there's some like if they ate broccoli because they were told to eat more fiber, it could be the worst thing ever for them. And it could constipate them and all that stuff. And, they could have all these things like, bleeding in their gut and stomach ulcers and all these things. So it could be really awful for them. But some people just don't have it just for the sake of not having it. And they don't they don't understand why, or they don't know why they're not having it. But then they can have certain gut issues like, bloating, some water retention, all this stuff, some, midday brain fog and everything. And this is where fiber really helps with gut motility, helps with movement within the gut. That's what really motility is when we're talking about the diverse microbiome of the gut. We want things moving around. Now, a lot of things like water and, walking, those things really help throughout the day. But if you've got no fiber, then fiber's, the way I look at it with a lot of people, it's kind of like a binder. It can bind a lot of toxins together in the body with like cholesterol and all that stuff, and you can excrete stuff throughout the stool. Now, if you're having troubles with that, then there's a lot of like endotoxins and stuff that can build up within the body, and that's where people can get gut issues.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And going back to, you mentioned broccoli, I remember like having broccoli, so often because you're told chicken, broccoli and rice when you first start.
You're told broccoli is the healthiest vegetable to
exactly.
eat, yeah.
And I'd started developing, some serious gut issues from broccoli as it was sort of going through that gut lining. Yep. I think it's with the broccoli and cauliflower, whatever the food group part is called, where it was basically seeping through my gut lining, so I wasn't digesting it properly, and I was getting some real bad like stomach issues and cramping and that sort of thing because I wasn't able to digest that when I had the gut issue back in the day, which I found really interesting.
And that could also be a stomach acidity thing as well. It's like, really like thick items like, broccoli stalks and stuff are hard to break down in the stomach unless you chew it really finely. But let's face it, who's going to chew that like 30 times before you swallow it?
Yeah, and I think that it's really good to mention, especially when we're talking about fiber, like because it's so important in that digestion process, is that people don't understand that, digestion starts in the mouth. Mastication, It starts in that position. And that's why you have people who are recommending you take your time, chew your food, don't be on your phone while you're doing it. You want to try to eat with no distraction. And that's because they really want the digestion process to actually work for you, right? So if you find you're someone who's always backed up, you're struggling to go to the toilet, all those sort of things, and you're always feeling like you have some gut issues, before maybe you start looking a bit deeper, look, okay, am I chewing my food 2 times and swallowing it, eating, a kilo's worth of food in 5 minutes and just chugging it down? And we've both had, that issue. We love eating, but taking that second, slowing down, savoring each bite, and really enjoying it is part of the digestion process as well that a lot of people don't realize.
Or, as you mentioned, with all those symptoms, are you just not getting enough fiber in the diet in general? So
Yeah.
this is why fibers, it's not as crystal clear as just like you need to eat 30 grams a day, or you need to have 70 grams a day, or you need to have 10 grams and work your way up. It's like, it is different for a lot of people with individual cases. If you do have an existing gut issue, I'd recommend, and we can segue into this now, the carnivore diet, because it is known to completely reverse a lot of things in people. Like, it reduces a lot of gut inflammation. You know, the L-carnitin, all that stuff helps aid with like fat loss. And then there's L-glutamine in a lot of the meats. So then that really heals the gut ulcers and all the stuff that's going on there, right? But people think, okay, I got these results from avoiding fiber, so then they don't reintroduce it back in the body. And this is where we're starting to see a lot of issues. People can't be on this ketogenic carnivore diet long term. We actually do need to start rebuilding sort of the basis, the probiotics, everything going on in our gut. And fiber, specifically because the water helps soften a stool and then it helps bind it, so it hardens it, helps you excrete stuff out. And I just can't, I'm trying to hammer it home how important that is for so many people, because so many people just don't do a normal bowel movement every single day. And they have like watery stools, or they just think it's normal. And it's like, no, it's not normal. And this is where fiber could just be the one missing link that you're on. It doesn't matter if you're eating steak and eggs every single day. It's like, if you're on the carnivore shit, which is known to be a thing where people just get the squirts because there's literally no fiber in the diet, then it's not actually healthy.
Yeah, and I think that's, it's a really good segue into that carnivore diet, because of course it can be really good, that carnivore ketogenic diet. When I first got my first coach, when I was having all those gut issues, he actually put me on keto for 2 weeks. Yeah. But he said straight up,
2 weeks.
Exactly.
Just can we emphasize that?
Emphasizing
2 weeks.
Yeah, short period of time, dramatic fat loss as well. I hated every day of it.
Yep.
But from there, we were like, okay, now we're going to slowly reintroduce carbohydrates back. So I'd have it post-workout, then maybe I'd have it again before bed. And every week we're slowly introducing more and more carbohydrates. And as a result, my gut issues went away. I was able to shit effectively again, and everything improved from just a general health standpoint. So I think it is really, really important that people understand these things, but like I said, not married to these long-term diets, because once you're married to them long-term, they have their own issues.
Yep.
But going back to fiber, what's the sort of difference in terms of, you hear a lot of people say, soluble fiber and insoluble fiber. If you want to give maybe a couple of examples there with foods as well.
Depends on the certain foods. I'm actually not the expert on this one, to be honest.
Cool.
I haven't actually looked that deep into insoluble versus soluble, and I'll never lie on the podcast for you guys. I honestly just get my sources of fiber from things like antioxidants, like fruits, chia seeds, certain breads like sourdough breads, and I used to actually have to supplement with it, like partially hydrolyzed guar gum's a really good one. Psyllium husk is a really big one for a lot of people, like with Metamucil and all that stuff, which I honestly think is absolutely garbage. Don't be taking that. But, do you have any thoughts to add to that?
Well, so soluble fiber dissolves in water.
Yeah.
And insoluble fiber just basically passes straight through into the gut.
Gotcha.
The sort of the best ways to look at it. So
yeah, I didn't actually know that, because from my understanding with the cholesterol and, the bile, and then everything that I mentioned on this podcast before about certain forms of fiber actually absorbing water into the stool and hardening it, that's what I thought it just was.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's quite interesting, because when you look more towards probably your fruits for your soluble fibers, oats, apples, barley, just fruits and legumes basically.
Yep.
And then when you go into insoluble, you're looking more at like your vegetables and your wheats and your grains, and those sort of things. So again, there's going to be that sort of level of topsy-turvy, which one do you have more of? And there's always the answer is sort of somewhere in the middle.
Yep.
But again, then that goes back to if you're having severe gut issues, if things are happening, potentially adding less soluble, more insoluble, etc. It's going to be a bit of a balancing act, but something that most people don't have to worry about if they're just consuming a good variety of fruits, vegetables, and grains. In terms of fiber, I like to recommend just to my clients as a general rule, for every 1,000 calories you're eating, you want to get at least, probably I'd say 10 to 15 grams of fiber. In an ideal world, my coach, he likes me having 30 to 40. He's a big fiber guy. So ever since I've probably gone from, let's say, probably 20-ish, I'd say, to up to 35, 40, really noticed a massive improvement in my digestion as well. So I think that's really relevant to note too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in the upwards of 50 to 70 at the moment. Like, I'm having it with every single meal. don't get me wrong, those cold pressed fiber boost bars that I have as a snack have like 27 grams in it. So that also really helps for 130 calories, mind you.
Yeah, well.
But so that stuff really helps in terms of gut motility. But I'm someone who definitely like needs fiber
Yeah,
for my gut motility.
Do you find you, like, for example, like 50, 70 is obviously more of like an extreme side of the high.
Yeah.
Do you find you struggle then to go to the toilet, or like do you have the opposite, like constipation or anything like that?
The complete opposite.
Interesting.
I have like, I don't want to toot my own horn, but perfect bowel movements.
Yeah.
Like I used to have IBS issues where like, I'd have one sip of coffee or one big glass of water when I wake up, and it's like I'd have to sprint to the toilet. Like now it's like, I feel it there, but I can go in an hour if I want. I can get through this traffic if I need to and get to my destination and not panic and feel like I'm going to shit myself. Like literally, there are so many people out there that have like irritable bowel issues that they don't want to remove things like work from home or in the office or anything because they're like, I'm just so comfortable being close to the toilet.
Yeah, and I think it goes back into, like I said, you've sort of gone to a position where you've fixed up your gut microbiome and that sort of thing.
It took a long time. Like I'm not preaching that I'm perfect or anything. Like it took a very long time to get where I'm at.
Yeah, and that's where people probably fall down, because it's like, again, we're not gut microbiome experts, but it's a point where you will start to have to look at this stuff if you're increasing your fiber but things still aren't working, for example.
Yep.
It's like you've gone from, no bowel movements or crappy bowel movements, and like you're trying to normalize things, but things just aren't working. That's probably when, like I said, you need to look under the hood and start looking a bit deeper at what's happening.
I can give you a perfect example. When I was in Brisbane, I had this one housemate, and he was a South African Lebanese guy. And this dude, like, I thought there was something mentally wrong with him. Like, just the irregulations of his mood swings and all this stuff, like, were just insane. Like, one day he was an absolute arsehole. One day he was a moody little bitch. One day he was, like, the best guy ever. And you're just like, man, what the hell's just going on here? Turns out, because he confessed his toiletry habits, because I noticed, like, while I was outside one day and just sitting there in the lounge room, and I'm like, fuck, this guy's been in that toilet for, like, 40 minutes or whatever. Like, he was completely constipated. Like, couldn't go for days. Was having issues and just sat on his phone in there, just in pain. And this is the thing, right? Like, those endotoxins are getting released, and, he's getting all these mood and brain issues and all this stuff. But then also, I noticed his diet, right? Now, this would surprise you, right? He was a veggie and fruit fiend. Was smashing it all day, every day, smashing apples, bananas, veggies. Like, that's all he ever had, right? And he would go to the gym and all this stuff, but obviously he had a pre-existing gut issue that he was just pretty much backing himself up, and it was causing chaos on him. Like, he was suffering, you could tell.
Yeah, it's really interesting how, like, again, because like you said, you go in and we could recommend to you guys, like, oh, okay, just eat more fiber. And don't get me wrong, for probably 95% of the population, it's probably a really good thing to just start eating more fiber, right?
Definitely.
But there are people who come in with these issues, and that's when you got to start looking, like I said, a little bit deeper. If you're, constantly constipated or having issues and you feel like you're consuming adequate fiber, that's when, like I said, you have to start looking a bit deeper, and that's when, again, the gut really starts to, to come into play. But I think going back to fiber and like good sources of fiber, I think for a lot of people, when you actually do like an audit of what you eat, and I understand people have some variety, right? But most people stick to the same, let's say 20 or 30 foods throughout the week. They might, maybe they'll get a couple of different, ready-made meals or something like that, but still there's probably going to be a cycle of the same 5 they like or whatever it is, right?
Monday to Friday. Generally.
Exactly. What you can do is you can jump onto MyFitnessPal or another chronometer, whatever calorie counting app you want. Chronometer might actually be a bit better because it does show a few more of the micronutrient side of things. And just have a look. Just add it in, make sure you're doing it properly, add it in, add the serving sizes, and just have a look at your fiber content for the day. I think that's a really good start for a lot of people who are like, oh, how much fiber am I getting? Because they have no idea. Track it for a day on a normal day, maybe 2 or 3 days if you're slightly varying things, because you might have days where, like I said, you might have one of those fiber bars that have 20 grams of fiber in there, and then another day you might have 5 grams of fiber across the day or the week. So I think that is, probably one of the take homes from this podcast is to be doing that, to be looking. And if you're sitting there eating, 2,000 to 3,000 calories, but you're only getting in 10 grams of fiber, you need to start bumping that up to, at least, 20, going into 30, I would strongly recommend. And you'll probably find things will start improving, not just from a, gut perspective potentially, but just from an everyday, perspective of, feeling better, going to the toilet, doing all the right things, and probably having more energy too.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like with gut motility, you want movement. Movement is key, but the fiber really helps with that movement. And you also do, as we mentioned with the soluble fiber, you need water as well. So if you're going to increase your calories and your fiber, then I'd recommend increasing your water and your movement as well. Just little things to help digestion, like digestive walks after you eat. Just move a little bit, 5-10 minutes, walk around the block, drink another 300 to 500 mils of water with your meal that contains fiber. All these things play a little role, but they can get big results in the long term. Like there was recently a study published that it was in mortality in elderly patients, and the ones that had a longer life expectancy just by increasing 11 grams of fiber a day. Just 11.
Yeah. I'm actually going to find, I put like a high fiber cheat list. I've got it on my, for my clients, I've got one, but I'm trying to find, like I had like a fiber list, like fiber per 100 grams. And I remember it being like really good. And I was like, oh, this is a great little resource. So let me see if I can, here we go. Yeah, I've got it here. So these are all fiber per 100 grams. So I think this would be a really good list to go through, the sort of top 10. Chia seeds were number one in terms of per 100 grams. Obviously, if you're going to have 100 grams of chia seeds, there's going to be a fuckload of calories that come with that. So a lot of fat. So do be wary. But that's 34.4 grams per 100 grams. So I have about 15 or 20 with my morning breakfast, for example, and I'm mixing it with my berries and yogurt. The next highest one is popcorn, believe it or not, 14.5 grams of fiber. Again, if you're having popcorn with heaps of salt and butter, calories add up quick. But if you're having sort of that more, unsalted one that's a bit more natural with less butter, can be really filling as well.
Yep.
So it can be useful.
Also,
almonds.
Just cautious on the sugar content depending on the one you get as well. Not just salt and butter, but
the sweetened.
If you're getting like a Cobb's popcorn, a salted caramel, it's delicious, but 25 grams of sugar per serve. For
sure. Yeah, and then we got lentils, almonds, lentils. They're about 10 to 15 grams. We got dark chocolate there as well, up at 10.9 grams. And again, these are all things that you will start seeing that, probably the first 5 of these are all probably relatively high in calories per 100 gram. And so it's really looking at sort of these other ones where now we're going through, broccoli, bananas, raspberries, beetroot, oats. They're all sitting around the, 3 to 6 grams per 100 grams. And these are the things that we should be, consuming a lot more of. Like pears, strawberries, avocados there as well, chickpeas, quinoa. So you can see it's basically vegetables, it's fruits, and it's grains. Yep. And then we've got a couple of other things in there, like I said, like you got your dark chocolate, your almonds, your popcorn. So these are a couple of things that you guys can use and say, okay, throughout my day, after taking the fiber recommendation on MyFitnessPal, how can I improve it? Can I swap certain foods for other foods? Can I add some chia seeds into my breakfast if I'm already having a yogurt or a shake or something like that? Just some really simple ways to just be like, oh, okay, I can easily get 15 grams of fiber in by making 2 changes like that. And those little changes are going to really add up and give you much more benefit over a longer period of time. Not just for your performance, but also your health.
Exactly.
Easy. I think that almost covers it, doesn't it?
Nothing to add on the rest of that.
Yeah, perfect.
It does, I would say it goes by an individual case-by-case basis, but majority of people listening, just the benefits of getting more fiber in your diet, go for it. Otherwise, contact a practitioner about your gut health.
Yep, just need to eat more fiber, guys. But that's the end of the podcast. Again, short and sweet with this one, but that's all we need. Once we give you the information, it is sweet. Again, if you guys have any questions through Fibre or you want to get in contact with us, you can contact me at Action Fitness Nutrition on Instagram or Liam at Coach Liam C. Murphy. But until next time, guys, we will see you in the next podcast.
See you guys.